Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Dr. Richard Finch, Dr. Nujra Arjun Gupta, Mrs. Vanita Maharaj, Mr. Kiru Naidu, Mr. Stanley Marke, Ms. Kavita Solanki, Ms. Shristi Harinarayan, and Mr. Piyush Khandawal, distinguished online guests. On behalf of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Consulate General of India, Durban, it gives me great pleasure to invite you to today's program, a discussion on Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam, the world is one family, to commemorate International Family Day. To begin today's program, I would like to introduce our first guest speaker, Mrs. Vanita Maharaj, to give us her introductory remarks. Mrs. Vanita Maharaj is an educator at the Sea Tides Secondary. She is the Chief Operations of Vishwa Shakti, which is also a non-profit organization. Mrs. Maharaj is a motivational speaker. She has coordinated over 38 management, also directed. She is also a Mrs. Maharaj.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam is my topic. Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam is a Sanskrit phrase meaning that the world is one family. It is a social philosophy emanating from a spiritual understanding that the whole of humanity is made of one life energy. If the divine source is one, then how are we as individuals different? If the whole ocean is one, then how is a drop of the ocean different from the ocean, because the drop will ultimately be dissolved in the ocean? Diversity of culture and tradition is our pride, but it is this diversity that makes life beautiful. Diversity of cultures is just like a garden with diverse flowers, with diverse fragrances, and it is this diversity that gives divinity to the garden. In the same way, it is the diversity of cultures that gives divinity to humanity. Our culture is thus a beautiful amalgamation of diverse languages, diverse traditions, and diverse existence. Respecting and celebrating cultures is the beauty of diversity. I think here I would want to emphasize the difference between tolerance and respect. Tolerance shows limitations in our view towards accepting others, whereas complete acceptance. Most people talk about their tolerance of people from different cultures. Kutumbkam is based on respect, not tolerance. When you respect another's culture, it shows total acceptance of their value system without condemning. But tolerance shows that one has to accept that culture or person, even if they have reservations of the other's beliefs. In order for the principle of the world being one family to work, we have to realize that we are not a single entity working all by ourselves. Everything we do and say affects everything around us. Our negativity is transferred to all that is around us, and so too our positivity will transcend to all around us. We do not live in a vacuum. Our interaction with humans, animals, plants, the oceans, mountains, all count. Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam tells us that we are all one family. A tree does not discriminate as to who will sit in its shade, or who will eat its fruit, or get its oxygen. Nature teaches us exactly what this phrase means. As humans, we talk about this concept of one family, but then we divide ourselves in terms of religion, race, language, of religion, and the list goes on. Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam can only be a reality if we start accepting everyone for who they are and not who we want them to be. Also, we need to realize that all aspects of nature is also a part of this universal family. So we need to respect our world and the animals and plants and seas and rivers. At the moment, we lost sight of what we need to do. We show total disrespect to what is around us. We pollute our world, killed animals indiscriminately. We forget that in order for us to live happily, we have to live in harmony with all aspects of nature. If we forget this, then there would be an imbalance, and that is when we start experiencing difficulty. Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam is based on the concept of love and compassion. But sometimes, because we give in to our selfishness, we forget what our true purpose in life is. I would like to end by singing a few lines of a song that I feel encapsulates the idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam. Madhuban khushboo deta hai, sagar savan deta hai, जीना उसका जीना है, जो रोग जीवन देता है, मधुबन खुशबू देता है। सूरज ना बन पाए तो बन के दीपक जलता चल, फूल मिले या अंगारे, सच की राहों पे चलता चल, सच की राहों पे चलता चल, प्यार दिलों को देता है, अश्कों को दामन देता है, जीना उसका जीना है, जो रोग जीवन देता है, मधुबन खुशबू देता है। The forest of honey gives us fragrance. The ocean gives us rain. Life has a meaning for he who gives life to others. If you cannot become the sun, be a lamp. Whether you get flowers or flames, keep walking on the path of truth. He who gives life and love to others has a meaning, and that is the importance of life. That's exactly what Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam means. Namaste, Vanakam.
Thank you, Ms. Vanita Maharaj, and for that beautiful song. Thank you. Our next speaker needs no introduction, Mr. Kiru Naidu. Mr. Kiru Naidu was born in 1868 and raised in Durban, South Africa. His ancestral origins are among the Indian indentured workers shipped to the plantations of colonial Natal from the southern part of India in the 19th century. Over several generations, his family were active in the trade union, political and civil society struggled against colonialism and apartheid. After his schooling in the township of Chatsworth, he read for degrees in politics, economics, history at the universities of Durban, Westville, and Cambridge. He prides himself in being an historian of the South African freedom struggle and writes extensively in the local and foreign media. His most recent publications in 2019 are edited volumes of poetry marking 25 years of South African freedom, as well as 2020 semi-autographical collection of his short stories titled Made in Chatsworth. He is the co-author with Paul David, Ranjit Chunilal, and Salva Naidu of the forthcoming book Indian South African to mark the 160th anniversary in 2020 of the first Indian indenture in South Africa. He serves on the management committee of the Gandhi Development Trust and is the immediate past chairperson of the Gandhi Luthuli Documentation Center at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. He is currently a senior civil servant in the Ministry of Human Settlements and Public Works in the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal. Mr. Kiru Naidu.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam. This great philosophy of humanity is something that's always been deeply ingrained in our outlook on life. Being of Indian origin, This was something one could say was coded into our genetic makeup. But along with that, we imbibed the great philosophy of Africa, the philosophy of Ubuntu, that I am because you are, that we are and we are because of each other. There's this beautiful song that the great South African singer Brenda Fassie composed maybe more than 20 years ago, looking at Ubuntu. And as one hears the lyrics of that song, it's essentially the essence of Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam, that we are all part of this one great big human family, irrespective of race, class, creed, or any of the other artificial barriers that have kept us apart, that we are of each other, and that our collective existence depends on how we treat each other, how we respect each other, how we give each other a hand up, especially in difficult circumstances. But we extend that to mean not only our human existence and how we interact with each other, but how we interact with the planet, the rivers and the lakes, the mountains, the flowers, the bees, all of which are in our natural environment and whose coexistence depends on our survival as a human species. When I visited India and visited the Indian Parliament, I was so struck by the words Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam inscribed in that great parliament of the world. And it exemplifies the whole attitude of successive Indian governments from Nehru right through to Prime Minister Modi, where there's this constant reaching out to other people beyond the boundaries of the Indian subcontinent. This belief that we need to be able to look out for each other, cooperate, whether it's in the area of culture or education, or indeed now at this time of COVID-19, where we see how well India has done to be able to share its expertise, its experts, its medical supplies, and the like with the people right across the world. This is the essence of the great humanity that we are part of, that we are not alone on this planet, that we have to look out for each other, that we have to care for our natural environment, because our survival as a human species depends entirely on that. We are one big human family. Vasudhaivam Kutumbkam.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and coming out and joining us today. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Our next guest speaker is Mr. Stanley Marquet. He's the founder and CEO of Nolo Consult Human Capital and Nolo Publishers, and a theology graduate. He resides in Pretoria, South Africa. Mr. Marquet is a pastor, motivational speaker, relationship coach, and author with 6 books to his name. He speaks on the following areas: change, performance, and culture. Mr. Stanley Marquet.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here, and I'm humbled by the invitation, and especially on this important initiative. And what I want to say with regards to this International Family Day is that there is no single individual in the world who has it all. There is no single individual who knows it all. We all know just a little bit of everything. So that says to me that I need you and you need me, because what you know, what you have, I don't have. And there is no single country in the world that has it all, or has all the mineral resources, or has all the resources, or has all the knowledge that it needs to run its day to day. So the world on its own, I mean, countries on their own, they cannot be able to be self-sufficient. We all need each other. And when you think about us as people who are created to live together, the things that actually are pushing us away from each other are the things that makes life difficult for us, because when we do not cooperate as the people of the world, that is where it becomes difficult for us to actually achieve most of the countries or the country's objectives. So as an individual country, we ought to make efforts to build relationships, solid relationships with countries, our neighboring countries. Because if you think of it, like if you look at South Africa is rich with mineral resources. We have gold, and most other countries in the world, they don't have gold, but they need gold. So in order for them to have an access to our mineral resources, there needs to be some cooperation between the two countries. Just as much as South Africa, it does not have all the mineral resources, all the knowledge, and that it needs cooperation with other organizations. So all of us, if we look at ourselves, we need to start understanding the importance of us as the world to come together to work together. If we look today, we have the same enemy, which is COVID-19. I mean, it's giving the whole world, it has put the whole world on its own feet. And now if the world is not coming together as one family to come and share ideas, show knowledge, and to come together in terms of sharing, to come to a place where they are able to come up with solutions in terms of how to deal with this challenge which affects the whole world. And I think this COVID situation has exposed us that we actually need each other more than ever. So each country cannot just keep the knowledge to itself, because I know that most countries, countries compete with each other in many different facets, but that should never be the reason why we don't share information, because information is what makes our lives better and our lives easy. That is why now when we look at this concept of the world being one family, it says to us that if I am seeing another country as one family, as part of me, then it will be very easy for me to cooperate with them. If an individual sees the other one as part of themselves, because as people, we are like a body. A body has many member parts. And when you look at the different member parts, I have, for example, on me, my hands, they've got their own holes and purpose. I've got my own eyes. And so each and every different part of the body has its own function. But that part of the body cannot function on its own. It only functions well when it's part of the body. So that is how the world should start looking at the importance of coming together, the importance of working together as one unit. Because when we work together as one unit, then that way we should be able to move towards peace. When we look at the world where there are wars, the only reason why people are in wars, or you find that there is no collaboration between different countries, it is because of the countries not recognizing other countries or not agreeing on a number of issues. So I think this day presents an opportunity to the world, to the people of the world, to say we need to wake up, we need each other. Let us hold hands, let us work together. Because when we work together, we will be able to achieve more and better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley Marke, for that inspirational talk. We shall now have a cultural performance by the Vishwa Shakti Group.
लहरें हैं अनेक, सागर है एक, तारे हैं कई, गगन पर है वही, गहने अलग अलग, पर एक है कनक, प्राणी भिन्न भिन्न, पर आत्मा भिन्न, इस सृष्टि का Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam, Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam, Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam. सागर से सागर है यही परम सत्य वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् यही आधार तत्व है निर्हित धर्मम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम् वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम्
Thank you to the Vishwa Shakti group for that wonderful performance. Our next guest speaker is Dr. Richard Finch, Education Consultant, Durban, South Africa. He is somebody of multicultural experiences and identities. Dr. Richard Finch is a professional educator with more than 40 years experience in teaching, pre-in-service teaching training, and in educational management specific skills in language, arts, and drama. In 2015, he obtained his Honorary Doctor of Letters, University of Namibia. In 1992, Diploma in Counseling with special emphasis on loss and bereavement, University of London, Goldsmiths College. In 1980, master's degree in design and development with special reference to language arts. In 1966, a bachelor's degree in education, drama, and English studies. In 2016 and 2018, language manager, consultant for Environment and Language Education Trust. 2015, a freelance teacher trainer for the British Council in South Africa. In 2011 to 2015, freelance teacher trainer for the British Council in Namibia, Botswana, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, Libya, Egypt, and Peru. In 2018 to 2010, senior lecturer in service trainer at the University of Namibia, Northern Campus. Presentations at drama conferences in Canada, Ethiopia, Senegal, African Teachers of English as Second Language, and Drama and Language Development. Canada. 2000 to 2007, Deputy Head Teacher, Kingsdale Secondary School. He has taught English and drama in many schools and served as a senior lecturer at the University of Birmingham School of Education. Dr. Richard Finch.
Is one family. I'm very honored to be here and to be talking to you alongside my illustrious colleagues. I'm delighted to share with you my understanding and experiences of the word and the meaning of family. And as you listen to my address and to those of the other speakers, you may wish to consider this question: how does a strengthened family unit help to strengthen societies and nations? How does a strengthened family unit help to strengthen societies and nations? If I throw a pebble into the lake, that pebble represents my earliest experiences of family nurturing. The ripples that pebble creates reach out in ever increasing circles. However, family is not just determined by a shared DNA and gene pool. The nature versus nurture debate is endless. Allow me, if you will, to share my own personal earliest beginnings. I was born at the end of the Second World War, and I was a brown baby, or as the British called them, half-castes. My father was a world hero in the Second World War, one of the most highly decorated black heroes in the Second World War, and my mother was in the Women's Royal Air Force. She was white. I was a result of that liaison and thus was born as a brown baby. But society dictated that this relationship was not going to work. I was in fact born in a home for unmarried mothers, and I was left there for 18 months in a pillowcase tied with string. Not a very auspicious beginning, you might think. However, I was very fortunate. So many were not. And at the age of 18 months old, I was adopted, having been heard, the lady having heard about my plight, who was working in a London hospital. At 18 months, I couldn't sit up. I'd had no human contact, or very little. I'd been kept in a pillowcase. And here I am today. This careful nurturing, the values learned through regular teaching and routine behavioral patterns shaped who I was to become. That was one aspect of family. And what I did when I was asked to think about this, I spoke to one or two other people about their definition of family. Marlene LaRue is a close friend. She is the CEO of Artscape in Cape Town. She was turned away from many hospitals when she developed polio infection, and as a result, that infection took hold of her, and she was in fact pronounced disabled. She's risen above that disability. She's a disability activist. And she has this to say about family. Family is for me to be with persons or a person that accepts me for who I am unconditionally. She was in fact brought up in a household of 10 adults. Her mother was the only breadwinner, and so it was her grandmother who nurtured her in this household. But that household, like my own, emanated love and poverty, hand in hand. Again, she would say that that upbringing, that nurturing, that need to survive, that strength to survive, made her who she was today, a highly successful ambassador for people with disabilities and for the arts. The single unit family has branches and extensions throughout generations. The family tree and history stretches one across communities, continents, and cultures. But the binding effect of that, and result of that, and the only thing that keeps it together is that of love. As I'm an artist, I'd like to read you this poem by the Chilean poet and ambassador Pablo Neruda. And for me, and for Marlene LaRue, it's a summary of family. I love you without knowing how, or when, or from where. I love you simply, without complexities or pride. I love you in this way, because I do not know any other way of loving but this, in which there is no I or you, but we, so intimate, that your hand upon my chest is my hand, so intimate that when I fall asleep, your eyes close. Now, as I said, this single unit, family, has branches and extensions through generations. The family tree and history stretches one across communities, continents, and cultures. As was mentioned by an earlier speaker, family is the spirit of Ubuntu, the ties that bind the human spirit. I am because we are. We achieve ourselves by sharing ourselves with others and caring for those around us. My dear stepdaughter, Sophie, a mother herself and living in the UK, said, family is both complex and simple. A shared history of the migrant adventurer leaving its mark across continents, the migrant adventurer. My late wife, the mother of Sophie, was from Burma, Myanmar, and had to leave to come to England in exile. And so there was a mixture of Anglo-Burmese, and her family have traversed across 3 continents. When I was much older, when I was 40, I met my biological father and had a very warm welcome in the island of Trinidad and Tobago. And so it seemed that everything went full circle. From the age of 9, it was my dream to come to Africa. And I held on to that dream, and I made it when I was 62. It's never too late. When I came, first to Namibia and then to South Africa, I loved it so much that I decided to stay. And so, again, I see myself, as many and throughout the diaspora, as migrant adventurers. It's a joyous continuity. It's a silken thread of steel and rope that binds one to the past, the present, and gives hope for the future. And so all of my journeys, and I'm sure the journeys of many of you, are both intensely sad and enormously joyous. We must celebrate difference, but we must recognize sameness. And this brings us today to the global family, suffering, recovering, reaching out, sharing. The ripples in the lake are never ending, and history repeats itself. And I want to finish, and I think it's very pertinent at this time, with a poem that was written in 1869, and it was reprinted during the 1919 pandemic. And so it's timeless, and family is timeless. And families stayed at home and read books and listened, and they rested and did exercises and made art and played and learned new ways of being and stopped and listened more deeply. Someone meditated, someone prayed, someone met their shadow, and people began to think differently. And people healed in the absence of people who lived in ignorant ways, dangerous, meaningless, and heartless. The earth also began to heal. And when the danger ended and people found themselves, they grieved for the dead and made new choices and dreamed of new visions and created new ways of living and completely healed the earth just as they were healed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Richard Bench, for sharing your life story with us and for those beautiful poems. Now we shall have a song by Miss Kavita Solanki, teacher of Indian culture at the Swami Vivekananda Culture Center.
Thank you, Cheryl. Hello, everyone. It's a beautiful song. In a one-line meaning of this song, open to all the doors of this our temple. So, सबके लिए खुला है मंदिर है ये हमारा मतभेद को भुलाता मंदिर है ये हमारा आओ कोई भी पंथी आओ कोई भी धर्मी देशी विदेशियों का मंदिर है ये हमारा संतों की उच्च वाणी सब जन है भाई भाई सब देवता समाता मंदिर है ये हमारा मतभेद होने पर भी मन भेद हो न पाए हर एकता का हामी मंदिर है ये हमारा मानव का धर्म क्या है मिलती है राह जिसमें चाहता भला सभी का मंदिर है ये हमारा आओ सभी मिलेंगे बैठेंगे प्रार्थना में टुकड़ा कहे अमर है मंदिर है ये हमारा सबके लिए खुला है मंदिर है ये हमारा मतभेद को भुलाता मंदिर है ये हमारा मंदिर है ये हमारा थैंक यू धन्यवाद
Thank you, Miss Kavita Solanki, for that beautiful song. Our next guest speaker is Dr. Nirjana Arun Gupta. She's from India. Just a little intro on Dr. Nirjana Arun Gupta. She is a professor, senior scale at the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan State College of Arts and Commerce, Ahmedabad. She is the director of Institute of Indic Studies Study Abroad Program, Diaspora Research Center, Gujarat University, Ahmedabad. She is the chief coordinator, Bharat Sud Santanan, Ahmedabad, principal director of Kashmir Project of Home Ministry of India, international academic chair GOPIO, which is the Global Organization of People of Indian Origin, New York. She's the member of the NACC Peer Team Bengaluru, chairperson of the Academic and Administrative Audit Policy for Higher Education Defining Body Gujarat Government. She's appointed spokesperson on CAA in Gujarat and conducted 20 sessions in 20 cities. The awards and recognitions Madam Ji has received, she's a representative of this Shiksha Bharati Pushkar in 2011, the recipient of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee National Award in 2017 for contribution in diaspora studies, recipient of Gopio Award for International Save the Planet campaign in Paris 2017. She's a recipient of the Lions Club International President's Award for the contribution in ecological issues and green earth efforts. Madam Ji has also written many books. So she's published, I will just name a few, Views on Hinduism by M.K. Gandhi, She has Student's Handbook and Indian Aesthetics. She's written poems by Indian diaspora, voices and versions, Indian diaspora discourses, human rights related to women and children, concerns, initiatives, education, commercial communication, and many other books. Dr. Nitra Gupta.
Sorry for joining late. As a parallel webinar was going on, this lockdown has actually increased our presences on laptops than on the basically physical presences. So first of all, I render my apologies for joining late. But I could catch up what Richard Finch was saying at the end, and I'm really happy to hear that on the family values. Thank you so much. I'm humbled to join this panel. When we talk of Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam, we talk of a unified brotherhood, a type of life spirit or a spark which runs through across the world, and we take everyone as part of us. And in this part, the knowledge of Vedas are very handy, because on one hand, thoughts come from all the directions. This that means capitalists. We don't want to just hold back to the good thoughts. It's not an idea. The idea is the next line. The next line says in another Veda, A Vadani Janebhya. When we say A Vadani Janebhya, is there any connection problem? I could see some problem here. Can you hear, Cherylji?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you clearly.
Right. So the next line says, A Vadani Janebhya. The moment not the capitalists who would buy them and put them in the libraries with some markers, but these are for the people. Ah, Vadani, Janebhya, these words, this wisdom, this whole knowledge system is for the world. That is the point when we connect with the outer world. We all live with two types of worlds. One is Antahakaran and one is Bahya. The moment we say Antaha is the inner side, but the word Karan is important. Karan is the tool. Karan is that particular mode through which we decide to go internal, that is Antaha, or Bahya, that is external. This unification of internal with the external is the mode how do we reach out to the world. And age-old Indian wisdom systems say that man cannot live alone. We are not islands. We are not standing alone like a node. We need to connect with ourselves, so much so that the energies connect us up to the planets. So for us, this is not human body. This is human being. No planetary object is a body. So sun is also a dev, or Chandrama is also a dev, and other planets are also dev. They are being. The moment we connect the word being, that is Chetana, Chaitanya, conscience, with others, that means we are establishing a binding wire. This connects us. So what are the things which connect us? What are those objects which actually take us from one point to other and we feel to get being connected? The one thing is the common values. We feel happy, at the same time we feel sad on the pain and the success. This empathy, this whole part of compassion is that binding force which connects us. Here I would like to recite one small part of the narrative which is in Mahabharata. Mahabharata, we know it's an age-old scripture, well-known scripture. And the trigger point, the crux of Mahabharata is the Draupadi's insult in the Kuru Sabha. Now that Kuru Sabha is not a small Sabha. It was basically a Jayant Sabha. When we say Jayant Sabha, the whole lot of people who have surrendered to Kuru Vansh were sitting there. So all sorts of kings and princes and everyone who is dignified, the Rishi, the Muni, everyone was sitting over there. Before them, this game of dice took place. Before them, Draupadi was insulted. Now, Draupadi again is not a small creature. She's not an ordinary girl. I'm not digressing into the subject. The thing is that she was insulted. After years, when it was decided that Mahabharata will happen, Arjun went to Krishna and asked Krishna, would you be on my side? And Krishna said, I would have been if there was some adharma. If anything which was unethical had happened, I would have sided you. Arjuna was in a shock. He said, how come you say that? It was everything is, you are aware of what has happened. You call it there was no adharma. Krishna said, yes, there was no adharma. Who was adharmi? The king, Dhritarashtra. He was a king. He had to look whether the rules were laid down or not, and they were all. Bhishma was a Senapati. He was the commander-in-chief. There was no attack from another army, so why should he act? There was Guru. The Guru's role was to just look after whether his teachings have been followed or not. The rules were well established. Both the parties agreed to it. They were playing according to the rules. Each one was performing their own dharma. Where was the other? So Arjuna started crying. He said, Krishna, Madhav, don't say that. You know something has happened, very unethical. The crux, what Krishna says at that time, that is the value which binds us as a human being in Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam. What Krishna said was, see, when we stand up for individual dharma, we are not the custodian of ethics. We are standing for the subjective values. What I say as ethical is different what the society says. The lokachar is different. Lok kalyan is different. So each one was standing with their own dharma, but what was missing was compassion. What was missing was karuna. At the bottom of a dharma, if karuna is missing, if compassion is missing, we are not living an ethical life. What binds us as a world, what binds us as a diaspora, what binds us as the human being is this karuna. We feel bad when something wrong happens. We feel good when there is a success story. We cry for each other when there is pain. We wait for each other when they are afar. And I always remember, there was a beautiful movie called Kabuliwala, and it was written by Rabindranath Tagore. In that movie, there is a song, beautiful song. I would like to sing those few lines, which actually binds the diaspora way back home. And it also tells how we in India keep waiting for all of you to come back home and to meet you. The song is "Ay mere pyare watan, ay mere bichhde chaman, tujh pe dil kurban." But the last stanza is sung by a diaspora, it seems. छोड़ कर अपनी ज़मीं को दूर आ पहुँचे हैं हम, दिल में है यही तमन्ना, तेरे ज़र्रों की कसम, जिस जगह पैदा हुए हैं उस जगह ही निकले दम, तुझ पे दिल कुर्बान. This jazba, dil kurban, you cannot surrender yourself. You surrender when you really feel being one. So this oneness like a family, oneness like a whole unit, when you are not separate, when you are not living separate lives, when the breath is one, when the whole body is one, then only you can have this feeling of surrendering, this whole feeling of being kurban. It's not an easy feeling. It's not a small phenomena. So when we talk of Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam, it's a huge giving up of the selfish motive. When I don't live in my house and you don't live in your house, it's something like Bahupad of the Bargad, the banyan tree. The banyan tree has a quality. It grows and grows and grows and grows so much that its branches start coming back to the earth. And wherever the branch falls, in few years, that branch becomes the root and the new offshoot of banyan comes from there. So all over the world, this diaspora is just like the banyan tree. They have spread out the branches to different cities, to different countries, to different zones, to different arena, to different professions, to different skill orders, to different values. Wherever they have gone, they don't forget to come back to the roots, and the roots is the main banyan tree, which I might call it India, because it's a very, very metaphorical precept what I'm presenting to you, this whole Bahupad. So we are the extended hands and branches and minds and faces of that banyan tree. And as we know, banyan is a very, very pure symbol of Indian civilization. Banyan is something like it has its own purifying effect. It's pujaniya. It's for the worship. So wherever the diaspora has gone, they have created an atmosphere which is very pious, which is very lovable. Their hard work or their sweats and their troubles or whatever they have faced, but they always aspire to create that place beautiful. That beauty is the element which connects the hearts of the homeland, the hearts of the host land, the heart. We may create many theories out of it. We may call it a salad bowl theory. We may call it a sandwich theory. We may call it a chutney pop theory. These are for academics. These are for researchers. But when we come to life, it's just like a book which has different pages is scattered all over the world, but someone has the effort to close the book and looks one, so you can read it as one family. So this is how I look at Vasudhaiva Kutumbkam, which has the same spark of compassion, the same spark of values, the ethical values, the moral values. They might be subjective, but there is a universality into it. So when we bow hands, we join hands and we bow for that goodness which connects us to the world. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Madam G, for enlightening us and sharing your knowledge with us and taking time off your busy schedule to join us today. Now that we have come to the end of today's program, we will have vote of thanks by Ms. Shristi Harinaran.
Namaskar. On behalf of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India, Durban, it gives me great pleasure in thanking you all for being our special guests and our audience members in today's program. A special thanks goes out to Mrs. Banita Maharaj, Mr. Kiru Naidu, Mr. Stanley Make, the team of Vishwa Shakti, Dr. Richard Finch, Dr. Nirja Arun Gupta, Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, esteemed colleagues, Ms. Cheryl Banwarilal, Ms. Kavita Solanki, and once again to you all for watching. Please stay tuned and follow us on social media to see what's happening next at SVCC. Stay at home, stay safe, and stay blessed. Namaskar.